here. So some overall general project information for us. The contract for this project is for $1.1 million. The tentative start date is April 3rd. And the tentative completion date is June 23rd. So that's the overall time frame the contractor has, about 12 weeks once they start the work to complete the project. The scope of work includes milling up the asphalt that's there, so milling off a layer of asphalt so we can replace it. Upgrading ADA ramps if they're needed at intersections, and some traffic signal push button work. There's some areas where we got some drainage issues where we're going to replace some curb and gutter, so the curb and gutter is not going to be replaced as the whole project, as well as storm sewer improvements. We've got some areas that are causing us problems that we're going to do repairs while we're in here. So I do want to mention again, this is construction. All this work is weather dependent, so this schedule can change. And additionally, we don't have a final schedule from the contractor yet. We're working this week to get that squared away. So there is a possibility the start date could change a little bit. If it does, it's likely going to be moved back. Wouldn't start any earlier than April 3rd. So how did we decide that this was a project that needed to be done? Well, the last time we were out here was 15 years ago. So the pavement, with all the traffic we have out here on Sprinkle Road, is kind of seeing the end of its days. As the slide says here, it was last paved in 2008. We last did a chip seal in 2014. Our maintenance doesn't include the work at between the rails at the railroad, but we were able to get some coordination here with the railroad when we were working on this project. For us, because of the age of the road and what we're starting to see, there's being increased maintenance efforts. And that was another flag for us to kind of look at when we were going to try to do this. I do want to mention that we are aware that MDOT has an I-94 project going on. It's been going on for a few years. I'm sure everybody's tired of that as well. I am as well. I have to drive through it every day. We tried as hard as we could to avoid this project. Been trying for 3 years to avoid, because we know the impacts that that project has, and being right here by the interchange. The funding we got for this was awarded to us in 2020. So we've been trying since then to figure out when we could go with our project that would minimize the impact from what was going on I-94. And at the time, MDOT's project was supposed to be done by now. So this was the best we could do, unfortunately. If we don't do the project this year, we're going to lose the federal funds that we were awarded for it, which are about $800,000 of that 1.1 million that we were talking about. So those federal dollars are a huge benefit to us. So here at the Road Commission, we use what we call a mix of fixes when we're looking at roads and treatments. Much like a car, there's various levels of maintenance you need to do to keep the car up and running. For us, those 3 types of fixes we look at are for roads are preventive maintenance, which usually include just some like chip seal efforts, crack sealing to keep water out of the roadway. Rehabilitation projects, which this is more geared towards, look at removing that first layer of asphalt and rebuilding everything from there, doing some drainage improvements. And then finally, when the road has kind of reached the end of its whole life, we'll go back and reconstruct everything. So it kind of essentially means taking the road back down to gravel and then rebuilding everything up from there to give us a new good base that we can establish the road from. So I think everybody may have heard, I know we put out a press release on this, there will be impacts to traffic for this project. There's no way to get around it, just with the number of vehicles we have out here and the type of work we have to do. It's going to have impacts. So we will have lane reductions and shifts, traffic shifts. Driveways and streets may be inaccessible at times. We're going to try to minimize those, but there are times when we cannot avoid that. And I think one of the big things for us here, we want to make sure everybody's aware of, Sprinkle Road will be closed while some railroad work is going on. We'll get into some more details on that here in a minute. Emergency vehicles will have access in the closed areas whenever they need it. The contractor will get out of the way, make sure those vehicles can get in and out. And the contractors primarily work from 7 in the morning till 7 in the evening. There's not planned night work out here, so there shouldn't be any impacts overnight. We do want to stress that because of what we're doing, we will be restricting Sprinkle Road down to 1 lane in each direction. That residents should anticipate delays if they're going to travel through the construction zone.
So it's not gonna be shut down fully, there will be one thing.
It will be fully shut down when the railroad is doing its work. And again, I'll get into that in some more detail here in a minute. The railroad will close, otherwise you will be able to get through this work zone. But again, expect delays if you do. We do recommend if you have to be somewhere potentially seeking an alternate route to avoid those delays and any headaches that might cause. So here is one of the first phases we have, and in the areas in red are what we have highlighted is what has to be closed to make sure that we can fit what we need to with the contractor in his work areas. So access on both sides of Sprinkle Road is closed around Midlink Drive. Van Rick and Midlink Drive will be closed. Two-way traffic will be shifted to the west side of the road. So that'll be like the McDonald's and the gas station side to keep traffic going in 1 lane in each direction. Those businesses will have their driveways closed along Sprinkle Road. So Speedway, the driveways onto Sprinkle will be closed. The BP will have the same thing happening in that area. Again, because of the work we're doing in there, we have to make sure that the contractor has safety and what they're doing and needing to get in and out. What the contractor has given us as a proposed schedule is this work would take approximately 2 weeks. So once that work is done, we would then shift into phase 2, which shifts work to the west side. Is that right? Yeah, to the west side. So I had that back. No, the work goes on the west side. So traffic shifts to the east side. So again, we're going to keep the driveways closed and Midlink Drive closed so the contractor can get their work done. 1 lane in each direction, north and southbound, will be open, but the streets and the driveways along there will be closed. Local access again off of Easy Street and Covington Road will be available. And the contractor again has proposed this to take about 2 weeks, is what they've tentatively proposed to us. But both of these phases are towards the beginning of the project, so these impacts will be at the front end of the job. But once we reach the end of these 2 stages, we then move into the railroad work. So what the railroad has indicated to us is they're looking at about a 3-week closure needed, and that's going to start somewhere around May 1st. So with this being closed, we need to emphasize that crossing will be closed. No motor vehicles are going to be able to get across that rail line. 10 feet on either side of the rail line, the pavement is going to be removed down to gravel. So you're not going to be able to drive up to the rail line and drive across the rails. You're not going to be able to get across the rail crossing. And with what the railroad has indicated to us, what they're going to do for essentially they're replacing the crossing. And what they're going to do with that work is it's not going to be, as you've seen in some other areas, they put in these concrete panels. It's going to be an asphalt crossing similar to what they had there before. But again, they shared some information with me. I'll share here in a couple of slides about that. We feel it's going to be a better crossing than we have there now based on what they told us. So we kind of want to run through what should you expect while this project is under construction. So as I've mentioned, we're going to maintain 1 lane of traffic in either direction. So there will be 1 lane northbound and 1 lane southbound. You will not be able to access businesses or side streets while the work is working underway on those first 2 phases. So while that work is occurring, we're going to have those driveways and side streets closed. The surface, because we will be milling up that asphalt surface, will be dirty, dusty. A lot of the operations will be noisy. And again, we believe there will be delays and backups that the public could anticipate to happen in this area. I know a couple of years ago, we also had a project down near Meredith where we had traffic down to 1 lane in each direction. That seemed to work fairly well. But again, we also cautioned the public that there could be delays during that project as well, just to make sure everybody was aware. So real quick here, I want to kind of go over the overall schedule. So phase one, again, the east side of the road, mid to early April, we anticipate that to start. Again, that process will take about 2 weeks. Phase two, that west side will move mid to late April. Then our road work is going to start working on the pedestrian signals and ramps that need to be upgraded in the area. With that, that's going to be a bulk of the work that we need to do that's going to be outside the curb in this project. So we'll be able to start our restoration efforts. And then the railroad's going to come in here in May, close the entire road down. We will still be able to do some work in that time frame. So there's kind of some overlapping work there. But we anticipate the contractor coming back in to mill and do their paving in early June. Then we have to come back and raise all the manholes back up and put concrete around them so they're all flush with the surface of the road. And that'll be done in mid-June. And then finally, we'll be able to come back in and put in our pavement markings and update any signs we have to be able to get done by the end of June and out hopefully before the 4th of July. So for the storm sewer improvements, as I mentioned earlier, we do have a couple areas where drainage issues will be addressed. It's not the whole project, just some troublesome spots for us. We'll be repairing some manholes and structures that have condition issues. You can kind of see that in the picture here, the image on the right. Some of those bricks from the top that are supporting are starting to fall in. So we want to make sure these structures can still handle car traffic driving over them. We don't anticipate any other upgrades or additions to the drainage system we have out there now. It's purely just fixing what we have in place to make sure it can service us in the future. Sidewalk, ramp, and pedestrian work. If needed, the ramps and push buttons will be upgraded to meet current standards. Pedestrian access will be limited during this time because we'll have to reset those concrete ramps and have to keep pedestrian traffic off of those while those cure. I also mentioned the curb replacement. This picture here shows a whole brand new curb going in. That is not what we're doing with this project. Again, there's some troublesome areas we have with drainage. We're going to come in, selectively take out those areas, reestablish the grade we need to make sure everything can drain properly to correct those issues. And then restoration, any areas that have been disturbed behind the curb will be restored by our contractor when the work is complete. So grass areas will be seeded and a straw blanket will be applied on top of that. Not included with this project are watering, weeding, or mowing those grass areas. So that would fall to the adjacent property owner to make sure these areas get water and can grow. We do usually see that grass does establish over time, but it helps if it gets water, help it establish faster. So again, I mentioned the rail crossing. We kind of couldn't avoid it. I think if everybody's driven through here, I know you wouldn't disagree with me. I don't think that this crossing has needed some work for a little bit of time. Fortunately, we were able to coordinate with the railroad to get this work done. They have an order from the state of Michigan that they have to replace that crossing by November of this year. So even if we weren't able to coordinate it with our project, they were going to come in and have to do this closure on Sprinkle Road. Fortunately, we were able to work with them and have it done at the same time to help minimize impacts to the public, so that while we have some of our detours and lane shifts going on, that those impacts are happening at the same time. But they were able to get some funding through the state of Michigan to help them replace this crossing. And again, we're grateful that the railroad was able to meet our schedule and get out here and do the work at the same time we are. So here's some pictures from out here not too long ago. We know it's been in dire need of repair. This is the similar type of treatment the railroad is going to put back in here. So there are these rubber guards that run on both sides of the rails, and then they place asphalt up to either side of those. However, they have said there are some other things they're going to do when they're replacing this to help minimize the track movement. They've told us that they've done these sorts of treatments on the east side of the state and seen them work well. So hopefully What we will not see is once this is done, that the track moves up and down and creates these areas where the asphalt breaks adjacent to the road, causing those potholes. They seem pretty confident that it's gonna help minimize that movement and give us a better crossing for a longer period of time here. I'm an expert in roads, so I have to trust the railroad people when they tell me that this is gonna work better than what we have here now. Again, can't stress enough, and when I'm bringing this up here again, that the Sprinkle Road will be closed during this time that the railroad work is going on. And again, about a 3-week timeline is what they're looking at to get this work completed. So this is the detour we have highlighted here. The official detour is taking Court Street over to Portage Road and down back to Kilgore Road to get you around the project. So right now, we're going to go through a few pictures of some of the operations you can expect to see out here, just if you haven't been around construction much before, to give you an idea of what would be going on. So when we say milling the asphalt surface, the machine on the right-hand side of the screen has this big drum with teeth on it, comes through, grinds up the asphalt in smaller chunks to put into trucks and be hauled away. That's removing that surface layer of asphalt that has aged over time and is starting to cause us some of the problems we see with maintenance. So this may require lane closures and closures or access to driveways while they're working through those areas. But once they get through that area, they should be able to open an intersection or driveway back up. So again, this machine might take 10-15 minutes to get through an area, but again, you should be able to get in after that once it's done. This machine is noisy, and that milling operation does create dust. So you should expect that while this operation is going on. But once that's done, we can then come back in and put asphalt back on that milled surface. So we're anticipating taking off 2 inches and putting 2 inches of asphalt back on the roadway. And this again will require lane closures and to access to driveways and side streets while they're paving through the intersection. We do ask the public to avoid driving and turning on the hot asphalt. While it may look done as soon as they go by, you can do a lot of damage if the asphalt hasn't had time to cool and set to be able to handle those types of movements. So be mindful if there's someone out there telling you not to drive over the asphalt because it's not ready to be driven yet. This project is going to utilize an operation that we have started using over the past few years, and it's called echelon paving. And what that means is 2 pavers will be set up next to each other. And when they do this, the joint between them is very hot and can be rolled across and compacted to the same density. So it actually reduces areas where we can see potential potholes in the future. Anywhere there's a hot asphalt being placed next to cold asphalt creates a joint. And that joint is always weak, where we typically see most of our failures and potholes starting in the roads. So when you place 2 hot layers of asphalt next to each other, it's all uniform and that joint kind of disappears. So when we do this, we've seen it help extends the life of the pavement because it reduces the area, that surface area on the road where water can get in. So the translation of this is that by doing it with this method, we'll see less potholes in the future. And who doesn't like seeing less potholes on the road? So we'll be able to do that for like northbound and southbound. We can't get away from the joint in the middle of the road, but not everybody's going to be driving on that joint in the center turn lane. So it's a little bit more tolerable for us in this case. I mentioned manholes would be adjusted. So this is a picture of that operation. We do lower the manholes before we pave, so they're under the asphalt, and the contractor has to come back with a coring rig, essentially cores out a hole to then raise that manhole back up. We'll get it set to the elevation it needs to be and then place concrete around it. So it has a smooth finish between the adjacent asphalt. Provides for a smoother ride. Although there aren't any stop signs on this project, we'll go through and do any sign upgrades that are needed while we're out here, just to make sure we've got the whole corridor covered for any needs that we have out here. And then once the pavement is placed, we'll be back to apply the paint on the road for the pavement markings. The road is close to being finished at that point. I know Jim, who I mentioned is a project manager, also has a lot of history and background with us as a traffic engineer. He'd want me to ask you guys to not drive across the wet paint when it's out here because it can get on your car. It does track on the road. So when it does say wet paint, it is wet paint. If you can keep off of it, it helps keep that application where we need it on the road. So you might think we're all done after that, but just want to advise everybody, we have been undertaking a process here at the Road Commission, and on our newer pavements, so within a year or two, we come back and apply a chip seal. The best way I can describe this, or best analogy I can use, is undercoating your car, right? So you want to get it rust proofed. When are you going to do that? When it's a new car, right? You're not going to wait 6 years and then come in and do your undercoating to try to stop the rust. For us, water penetration and exposure to the sun are the greatest harms to the roads we have. So if we can get this asphalt layer with the stones on top of it on it sooner, we've seen studies, and we've been doing this for a number of years and seen it extending the life of the roads. So we feel this is a wise investment in this $1 million project we're putting in here to try to make it last longer. So I can tell you the best way to keep up to date with our construction on this project is we have a tool called RCKC Connect. I know we have some cards over by the sign-in sheet. Again, this will be a part of the packet we have. You can sign up for this on our website, which is noted there on the slide, KalamazooCountyRoads.com. If you sign up for construction updates, you can sign up for a specific township or the whole county. And then whenever we have a project update in that county, you will get a notification. You can sign up via email, text, or phone. We do advise probably doing email or text, but be advised that some of these notices, like road closures, can happen in the middle of the night. So if you don't want that text coming in at potentially 3 in the morning when we have an emergency closure, maybe email is a better option, and then you can get up in the morning and see that road closure happen. But again, this is completely voluntary. You can sign up for it, and whenever you want to unsubscribe from everything, sign back in and uncheck everything, and you won't get any more alerts from us if you're just concerned about the Sprinkle Road project here. There are other ways to connect with us. We got a few of them on the screen here. So we do have our office phone number, 269-381-3171. Our website is mentioned a couple of times. We are also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and LinkedIn. And by all means, if you have an urgent issue with the project being right outside our door, you're more than welcome to come up to the front desk here and ask to speak to somebody about it. If we're not able to help you immediately, we should be able to get somebody in touch with you in a short amount of time, if Jim or myself are not here to be able to answer your questions directly. So I think I saw some hands trying to shoot up before, so I want to thank everybody for their patience and waiting till the end here when I could open this up for questions. I'm going to check with Sarah to see if I missed anything before we do that. Okay. So if you guys have any questions, we'll take those now. I think what we would try to do is keep general questions for the overall project. Maybe if you have some specific site related stuff. I know Sam has a plan set here. We can pull up your specific site and show you exactly what's going on and when that's planned for any potential impacts to you. So I will open it up if anybody has any questions.
So the mid-link access would be closed like this, so how do we get in?
Yeah, so again, the question was Midlink access is going to be closed. How do we get into Midlink? The Park Circle access will be open during the entire process. If you would go down to the next traffic light, hang a left, you will be able to get into the development using Park Circle.
How can you do that with rail?
That will still be. Yeah, so so the question is how we do that with the railroad closure. So we are closing the road at Park Circle Covington. So if again, businesses are in there, you will be able to have access to the businesses, but we'll be having barricades up at that section of the road to encourage people to turn left or right at Covington or Park Circle to make sure that they don't get into the closure where the railroad is.
Say Sprinkle Road and Van Dyke both closed. So how about the businesses with access to the Van Dyke? Will be closed simultaneously or? Van Dyke
and Sprinkle driveways will be closed at the same time, yes. So there is an access off of Covington. You can get back around to Van Rick to get access to the businesses that have the driveway closures. So there is a way back, right? So essentially you gotta come in.
No work on the ventilation at all, it's only the spring.
Yes, correct. Yeah, this work is only going along Sprinkle Road, yes.
What close, there's my ventilation.
Yeah, no, we're just closing the access so people can't drive into Sprinkle where we need to work. So driveways on to Van Rick, Easy Street, those accesses will be open.
So Covington will be open, so they can go from Sprinkle to Covington, that time.
Yes, yes, you will be able to access Van Rick from Covington off of Sprinkle.
So the entire time of the project, my 2 drives on Sprinkle Road will be closed off.
And you said you were with Speedway,
Yes.
correct? So I believe that's only for those first 2 phases. And then it will be if we gotta come by with the mill or paver, that will close it for a little while, but that 4-week window that the contractor's given us, that they will be closed for that up to 4 weeks is what we're seeing right now. But after that, we should be able to open those back up.
Yeah, but after 4 weeks, that'll move into May, right? So then it'll just be shut down anyways.
Yes, the road will be closed, but we won't have barricades up on your driveway, keeping people from coming in and out of those driveways.
So when those driveways are closed, how do we access? people?
You have to go around the backside.
Yeah, what we just talked about. So to access Speedway, when those closures are happening, you'll have to go down to Covington. And then there's a Van Rick kind of tees back in there behind Wendy's. There's another business back there that comes back up to Van Rick by the Speedway. So you can access Michelle's and Jimmy John's and the hotel and Speedway all off of that back route off of Van Rick. We try to bring up a slide here to kind of show that. So this closure here, right? You come back, Covington here, this loops around. So there's another, this accesses Wing Stadium back off of here as well. So that will be the primary way to access the businesses right there at Van Rick.
And how long that area would be closed, the total time period?
The closure for the railroad?
No, this one for the Sprinkle to the Covington, we have to access for how long, like 1 month, 2 months, or you're all the way up? It started I-94.
So during this phase of the operations, Covington will be open the entire project. So this rear access will be available the entire duration of the project. This phase and the one before it, where we were closing those driveways, are estimated to be 4 weeks total, 2 weeks for each phase. It may be less if the contractor can get stuff done sooner, but we have to go with what they've given us so far.
But you also said weather dependent, so like rain and all of
That could delay things a little bit too.
No more snow.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, but this morning we were in a blizzard an hour, what, 40 degrees?
yeah. Hey, it was easy for us to plow today, so I'll just say that.
On your map there, where you show your orange or red, whatever color you call that. No, when you're just on that one. Why isn't it continuing all the way down to the railroad tracks? The color band.
Because this is an area where we have some of that storm sewer work going on, and that extends out into the roadway where we need to have, the contractor has to have access to work in the road. So the rest of the storm sewer from here south wasn't in a condition we needed to do this level of work. So that's the primary reason this whole staging is happening here. Just because some of those structures are out in the roadway and there's no other way for us to get to them other than closing lanes and making it safe for the contractor to work out there.
Okay, but you are gonna asphalt all the way down to the railroads.
Yes, yeah, we're repaving from down here at N Avenue all the way up to that concrete joint that's shown up here for 94. So this will be repaved from here all the way down to 94 or N Avenue.
Is that by the roundabout?
So.
Yeah, it's just, so this is, the concrete is where all the lanes merge back in from the roundabout. So yes, it's just south of the roundabout too. We'll be just north of N Avenue is where we'll stop the paving.
Given the bad news, people at Wings Event Center that they're gonna have all kinds of traffic issues.
Can you repeat that question?
Yeah, so the question was, have we gotten in touch with, the Wings Event Center and let them know about the kind of traffic issues they're gonna have? And yes, we have been reaching out to them to make sure everybody's aware of this. Again, you can access, all of their parking and everything back there off of Covington. But yes, it's likely, as I mentioned, there are going to be delays out here. There are going to be backups.
Because there's an awful lot of traffic that comes off of on the Van Rick to get in that area. That's the primary, I think.
We understand, and it's, there's a double-edged sword for us, right? When do you do the work? For us, we want to do it during spring and construction season. We can't do it, and when we can't do this in winter. They've got events going on all year, so we kind of just gotta pick a day and go, and this lined up for the railroad, and from my conversations with MDOT, should minimize impacts with what's going on 94. Again, can't guarantee that, but we're trying as best we can with everything they've got going on in their project.
Next question, is Portage Road being made and restored to 4 lanes before you dump all that traffic?
Not 100% sure on that. So again, the question was, is Portage Road gonna be open back up to 4 lanes before we send the traffic over here? And there's been a lot of schedule changes and delays with MDOT, so I can't say anything with certainty to that.
2 lanes
So
doesn't handle the traffic now. You've done all the spindle traffic over there, it's disasters.
understand, we understand. And so we understand also that local traffic is also gonna find their own detours. But we have to post one, and this is where we want people who aren't familiar
That's the best.
to be able to go without getting lost or getting on other roads where they're not as sure of where they need to be.
Looking at your map, I think ML to 28th back around like.
There's reasons we didn't make that
Those
the
are
primary
small.
route, but yes, there are other ways around this as well. Yes,
So if I recall, you said that when they're doing the east side of the road. And they're working on the west side of the road. You cannot cross that area they're working to go into the businesses on the west side.
correct,
That's about a 2-week deal.
yes. Best estimate we have right now from the contractor for, yes, each of these phases is 2 weeks.
And that's largely because safety in that work zone, but because of the proximity of our cut down to get to that storm structure and install it. It's so close to the traffic that we're maintaining on the east side that we have concrete barrier all through there. So that'll be preventing anyone from driving through. It's not gonna be barrels or cones, it'll be concrete barrier.
blocking the driveways also.
Down the center, right?
Oh, yeah, no, it's not.
Down the center.
Thank you for that clarification, Sam. If anybody didn't hear, concrete barrier wall will be used out here to help protect the construction zone, so that's why we can't let anybody back in sooner.
But if you're below, if you're south of those concrete barriers. Are you gonna be able to still cross into the west side?
Sam, you help me, I don't know if there's any prohibitions on like left turns or anything in here.
Yeah, we are, so for example. When traffic's on the west side of the road, north and southbound 1 lane, barrier wall in the center and works on the east side. We're restricting access to those driveways, Speedway, Jimmy John's, because we don't want someone trying to take a left out of Speedway. With traffic going 1 way each direction, funneled in 1 single lane each direction, that's dangerous, trying to take a left into that traffic zone, pulling out. So instead, the alternative route being getting onto Covington, is it, or Van Rick? And then working your way down around Covington and then getting on Sprinkle at that signal.
So basically, you're saying whether you're working on the east or the west side, you can only go straight through. I think when you're going either direction,
Correct.
so it's gonna be a month.
Approximately.
If you allow left turns, backs up traffic.
Tremendously. That's a great point.
I mean, people will do, I think we've all driven somewhere where there's a no left turn sign and somebody's sitting there with their left turn signal on. I know I have. So it's gonna happen out here too, and we're gonna see backups and people are gonna honk horns and that sort of stuff. We understand there's impacts to the businesses. We try to minimize it as best we can. We have to get in here and do something, and really there's no great time to do it. We're just trying to minimize the impact as much as we can.
You're gonna blockade that entrance or the mid-link entrance too, so that way people aren't turning left into there. Even though they're not supposed to be, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it might not be shown here, but we may have something in the plans. If not, it's not that hard for us to put something in the plans to do that, because I know before we put a left turn phase down there that was better timed, a lot of people still do it. But yeah, we'll definitely look at that.
Southbound traffic turning left into that other driveway.
Yep.
Is big barricade says don't do it, the driveway's awkward, and you'll have to recut a curbs and technical.
Is there any particular areas that decided to be to sign, like houses are like 1 mile ago, so that people know people won't get stuck there? Any particular zone you decided that this street, they know, so it's better for everybody?
So we have had out there for, okay, sorry, thank you, Sarah. I repeat the question for our recording here. So the question was, did we have, where do we have signing to let people know about the construction? Is that?
So they know, so they don't wanna go very close and they said, oh, I cannot, and they stop. So they create more traffic also, and they are very, inconvenience for them also.
Yeah, so I know we have, so again, the detour signing, how far in advance to let people know the closures and that situation. So right now we have what we call changeable message signs, so they're out there kind of saying, sprinkle road work to start. Trying to let people know that stuff's gonna be going on out here. We are gonna keep using those during the project, and once we get the lane shifts and whatnot set up, we're gonna move those further back to alert people to when we're changing the conditions on the road. So when the road's gonna be closed. We also have, as a part of our whole detour route, there's signs along that whole detour route we had here. And Sam, were we putting anything on we were closing some of the lanes in the roundabout. And did that include one of the off-ramp lanes? I know we were doing some work related to the south roundabout here. To make sure people were in one lane as they were coming through. Through that intersection.
So there's signage in advance of the north roundabout as you're coming south. So that if you're trying to work your way down south across the railroad tracks, it essentially will tell you what the detour is, and really just need to take the roundabout back around so you can get on it. Or take a right to get on the Corbin head westbound to get onto that detour. If you're coming eastbound I-94 and you get off at Sprinkle, there's advanced signage on that on ramp, on that off ramp. So instead of getting on Sprinkle southbound, you can take the roundabouts and get up to. So, and the same thing with Sprinkle coming north. There's advanced signage.
And I know, like we did with the last project, Sarah had put out a press release for us stating what was going to happen out here, and we were looking at a closure starting in May. And when we did that with the last project about narrowing down to one lane in each direction, TV, radio picked it up and started broadcasting that out, that this was going to happen. And I think that, in all honesty, I was surprised at how smoothly that last project went. We hardly had a call in here from anybody complaining about traffic and backups. And I don't know if it's because of what we did with the media helping us get that message out. People were just avoiding the area. But again, that last project, I was surprised at how smooth it went from what we didn't hear from the public. So that's our hope, again, doing it with the press release here again and stating, hey, this time it's going to close people. It's going to be a huge impact. That'll get picked up by the media and they'll help spread that message for us. These are great questions. Thank you all for asking. Yeah.
How long does it take the paint to dry?
It could depend on a number of factors, whether I think they tend to leave that stuff out there maybe an hour or so, but yeah. surprising how many people will drive right behind that truck or want to pass it as it's going down the road.
What is more important than everybody else, they have what they want.
Jim always says, when they pick up the cones, you know you're good.
It's good. If there's not any other questions, well, we'll still be around here to answer any individual questions you might have, but I think we'll stop the recording and make the handouts available if anybody wants to or has to take off. Again, I've got a business card here if you need anything. Sam's got the plans. We can look at anything specific you might have. So thank you all again for coming, and hopefully the project goes smooth and we'll all be happy when it's done.